I just did an ICD-10 course with the AAPC, and because I'm a CPCI like Laureen did, we have been able to go ahead and take the let's see, proficiency ICD-10 exam, and that's what you guys will be taking in 2014. And you know what? You're not going to have any trouble with it. I think that it's not the challenge that everybody is scared about. And the closer we get to 2014, there's so many resources out there. Besides what we have our mini course, and then we'll have a full course in ICD-10 soon too. But there's a few little things that you need to prepare for. And one of the things is that you no longer are using just numbers when doing ICD, like ICD-9. You had 401.9 was hypertension, and you never saw in an ICD-9 code a letter. So they've changed the terminology, and it's no longer digits, but they're going to call them characters. And that is because you're going to see numbers and letters. So with that being said, there's some letters and numbers that get a little confusing, and I made a note of a couple of them. The number 0 and the letter O, when you write those together, nothing distinguishes them apart. And sometimes when you're typing, it doesn't distinguish them depending on what font you're using. And I know some of you know this because after the webinars, or if our students get an access code to something special, and if it has a 0 and an O, or vice versa, it can get very confusing. Now, another one is the letter Z. Surprisingly, some people make their Z's look like 2's, and so that can cause a problem. Z5 and S, you'd be surprised when those are written how some people they just look a little too similar. The number 7 also often can look like a 1 for some people, and so what you'll see with ICD-10 and what I was teaching my students at the college is to learn how to strike through letters, certain letters. The number 0, if you run a line through it or make it look like a not symbol, then with every time that you write a number versus a 0, you'll never be confused which is the letter O and which is a 0. Okay. Also the Z, if you use a strike through, then you know for sure that it's a Z and not a 2 or a messy 5. You'd think that they wouldn't confuse them, but I've seen some really interesting handwriting. And 7, I always strike through a 7. If you scroll down just a tad, you'll see why this can be very confusing. Look for encounter of general adult medical exam without abnormal findings, and we made fun at the college that this was ZOO. So if you remember ZOO, you've already memorized one ICD-10 code. So, and of course, encounter for general adult medical exam, you're going to see that quite often, but all of those are zeros and not the letter O. Just for your benefit, we put in Z 00.01, which is the exact as ZOO, except for its with abnormal findings. So you can imagine you're going to see that ZOO, as we say, very often. What about this one? An abdominal pregnancy. That is the letter O and 0.00. So absolutely this could get confusing. What about D.05.XX? And how often do you see somebody write the letter D when it looks like a 0? That happens pretty often. And what about 072.0? Have you seen people that would write their 7s and their 2s and make them look almost exactly the same? So if you use that strike through, then you don't have to worry about that. Another thing to keep in mind for ICD-10, and this is just some basic knowledge that to look forward to, the characters, whenever you see that X, like the carcinoma in situ of the breast, the reason that's .XX is because you need additional digits. You remember how in ICD-9 there was always a little mark in your coding manual that told you that you needed another digit? And that's the same thing the X is doing. They still do that in your coding manual. Your ICD-10 manual will tell you you need a 5th digit or a 6th digit or a 7th digit, because ultimately ICD-10 can keep going and going. One of the reasons we stopped ICD-9 is because we ran out of numbers. We ran out of space. So the X is very important. Don't let that scare you. If you see A at the end of an ICD-10, it means that it's the initial encounter. A D is subsequent, and an S is sequela, and that's ultimately a late effect. So these are things that are going to be very common in ICD-10. They'll be second nature before you know it. It seems a little strange now because you're so used to ICD-9, but just some notes, and we'll try to add some more as we go along for different webinars as we get closer to ICD-10, just so that before you take your course, you'll have a little background. Okay? It's going to be fun. You're going to love it, guys. But get used to striking through some of those numbers.
Thank you, Alicia. And did you pass?
I did. I passed my ICD-10 with a 92%. Whoop whoop to me.
Woohoo!
I was pretty thrilled about that.
I know. I called her, and she goes, "I'm taking my test. Coming back."
Yeah, she did.
A little intense.
Get more CPC exam tips, coding certification training, and CEU credits. Go to www.codingcertification.org.